Hey everybody, this is Dave from AskUncleDave.com. Today I'm going to talk to you about putting your Apple TV in your car. Now, the Apple TV 4 is a perfect media box to put in your car because it has apps, it has a great app store. You can stream video with the apps that you can install on here. And you can also AirPlay with the new Apple TV 4 and the new firmware for the tvOS. You don't even need a router in between like the old days. You have to have your phone, hook it to a router, Wi-Fi, even if it doesn't have an internet connection to the World Wide Web, and then connect your Apple TV to that router, and then you can AirPlay your TV shows and movies that you have stored on your phone. If you needed to stream, you needed a live internet router, but we don't need all that today. Today is direct play. You just have to have your Wi-Fi on both devices, and your iOS device will find your Apple TV, and you can throw over whatever video you like. So Apple TV is perfect, especially if you're an iOS user, an iPhone user. Now, how we're going to do this is we're going to put this in the car. In the old days, you had to have a big, gigantic inverter with fans running, and you had to use the household plug that came with the Apple TV, this AC 110 volt plug here. But today, we're going to do a hack on it. We're going to remove the power supply from the Apple TV, and we're going to put this new product in here. This is from carsystems.com.ua. And they made this power supply and sent it out to me. And what we're going to do is we're going to replace the old power supply. And what it does is it allows you to connect up this wire here, which has a barrel connector. Now this is the barrel connector that comes with it as well. And you slip it in here and you can power this with a 12 volt plug in your car. So just that alone will save you on having to have an inverter in your car, and you can power up the Apple TV. Now the power for the Apple TV requires 12 volts at 0.917 amps, so less than an amp to run this. Now in the old days, the older Apple TVs, the Apple TV 3 for instance, it was 3.4 volts at 1.75 amps, so that was kind of hard. You had to buy special little things to make it go from 110 down to 3.4 and go to 12 volt. It was too much work. This now runs onto the 12 volt. Now the inside the power supply, we're going to open this up. I'm going to show you everything and show you all the screws and everything we need. Now this is the positive here, and this is the negative. And what's great about the Apple TV, this power supply as well as the one that's in the Apple TV, it doesn't use any wires to supply power to the motherboard. There's a heat sink, there's a power supply, there's a heat sink, and then there's a motherboard. So the screw that goes into this positive here is actually made out of steel, and it goes all the way through, and that's how Apple runs their power to their motherboard. So that's pretty ingenious, and Car Systems took advantage of that as well. So it comes with this, and that's great. Okay, we're going to be able to now turn our Apple TV up, and you won't have this connection anymore. It will be now the barrel plug. Now you still want to be able to use this in your house, so I bought one of these here. This is a 5 amp 12 volt power plug for the home, and you'll be able to still plug that in as well and use your Apple TV in your home. You can even load up some movies with VLC or with one video app and have it off for offline use. And I have videos about that. I'll put the links in the description. So what I also plan to do is, the other problem that we have with the Apple TV in a car is that it uses HDMI. And some of the current radios up in the last couple of years, they actually have an HDMI in. Well, having DVD in motion is one other thing that's used with relays, so that you can watch TV while you're driving. But the whole point is just to get the Apple TV in the car, boat, or trailer, or whatever you have, a caravan, whatever you call those things, right? So you want to be able to now power up this converter. Now this converter, what it does is it goes from HDMI into the HDMI input. There's a little tiny board in here. It's more like a converter, and it goes to RCA, composite. So you have the video, you have the left and right, okay, and that goes in the back. Now a lot of those old old double din radios with the screens, the 7-inch, 8-inch screens, they have RCA inputs as well as RCA outputs and all that stuff. But now the problem we run into is, how do we power it? Now I have to not only have a 12-volt plug in my car for powering the Apple TV, I also have to power this device. This device only needs 5 volts and less than 2 amps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, and this is totally separate from this. You don't even need to do this, but this is in addition to this video, okay? So what I'm going to do is I bought this splitter here. Now this this plug here is 12 volts and has a fuse for 3 amps. So I'm able to run that much power through these lines, and this is rated as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, when I have it in my car, I'm going to plug in to the 12 volt, and I'm going to put this right in here. That's the input, and it splits into 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip this, and I'm going to use this. Now what this is a DC to DC buck converter. It's a step down, it steps down the voltage, right? And what it has is it has a positive, this is the negative side and that's the positive side, and you hook your 2 wires into here, all right? And then it will display the voltage, and then it will step it down to a USB that can be used for this device. So we're pretty much going to slip it in here, and we're going to, cover that up with some shrink wrap or heat wrap or whatever you call that, and we'll be able to now run power the 12 volts 1 amp that it needs for the Apple TV, and then we'll have this device here which will be powered by that. Now we're just talking about 1 plug here. Now when we plug it in the home, we only need an HDMI wire to the back of our TVs. They all have HDMI, and we'll connect just our HDMI wire from the Apple TV to your TV in your home. So now we solved a bunch of problems. What we're going to do now is I'm going to include all of this in the project. I'm going to have links for everything. It's going to be great. And the barrel sizes that you need to order, these are 2.5 by 5.5. Like I said, all the links will be in the description. Car System came up with this. There have been people on the internet that just hook a red wire and a black wire to this 2 screws, and then they run it to a 12 volt, and what happens is when the car turns on, you get a sudden jolt when you turn the lights on or something, and it fries the board inside here. See, what's good about this is it has the power supply here, and it also has like diodes, and it has a step down in here, and it controls the amount of voltage and makes it even across the whole system. So what's good is that even if you get jolts, you won't fry your power supply or even your motherboard on your Apple TV. That's what it's made for. That's why we buy these things. We don't want to just hook straight up wires into the power supply that's in here. It will work for temporary, because you can run a 12 volt straight up right into there, as long as it's the power supply on the Apple TV converts it down too, but it will fry out the board with power surges. All right, it's not made for that. This is. So you have to do it this way. You could do it the other way temporarily, but once you get that surge, your Apple TV is garbage. All right, let's open up the Apple TV and let's show you all these different amps and stuff like that. And we're going to install this right now. Okay, so the only thing you need to do this project is a thin flat screwdriver. You need a T7 and a T6. That's it. So you want to start out by prying out the cover. I already pried this one out, and there are clips, all right? And the clips are one in the middle, one here, one there, and then in the back there's 2 clips here, and then there's 3 clips here, and 3 clips here. So if you get in here and you push this away, you'll be able to pop up the cover, okay? So the cover comes off, and now we can use either T6 or T7, doesn't really matter. And we're going to take out these 5 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. all 5 of these screws are all the same size. So now we're just going to lift the cover up from the power side. Pop it right up. And now we see the motherboard here. Okay. So your motherboard is here, and this is the positive screw. This is where positive, the red wire goes. And this would be the negative, okay? So you got your CPU, you got all your RAM, you got all that stuff there. So we have to remove these 2 screws. Now take note that this screw here is made out of metal, because that's how you get the power from the power supply, okay? So we'll go ahead and remove that screw. Make sure you keep your screws separate, and that you make sure that the silver screw, not the black screw, is used for that area there. So once those 2 screws out, we can lift out the motherboard from the opposite side of the power. We'll pull that right out. Okay. There goes your A8 chip. And we'll put that to the side here. So now we have 4 screws in the corners here. So we're going to take this heatsink out right now. So we're going to go right in here and pull those 4 screws out. It's nice to have a magnetic tip. So now these 4 screws are equal in size as well. So here we have the positive and there's the negative, in case you wanted to know. So now we have this little light right there that we have to take out. It's hard to see. Let me make sure you guys can see it. And that simply just pops right out. It's rubber. This is rubber, and it pops right out. So we'll use our tweezers. And the rubber piece is there. And there's a little light bulb there that we have to pull out. It's got some little bit of glue on it. There it is. It came right out. Okay, so now that's out. See it? You got the rubber piece here. So we're going to put that to the side. So the next step is to take out the plug here. So we're going to spin that off. Okay. And then this power supply comes loose. Now we can, there's clips here, and we can pop out lift up as we put our screwdriver in there. And just by putting the screwdriver in there, it actually pushes it away and allows you to remove it. So here's your cover. It's got those 4 screwed receivers. Okay, so that's your cover there. So now we turn this over, and what we see is our power supply. So this power supply is going to be replaced. Okay, so first thing you want to do is you want to remove the old power supply. And you do that by lifting this tab on top. I'll show it to you. Lifting this tab on top and then squeezing these 2 together to pop it out. So now you can completely take it out, put it to the side. So now this power supply that's on the heatsink here, it has the positive screw there. So let's turn it this way, the positive screw there, and we're going to match it up. Okay, so there goes the steel screw, and then these are the regular magnetic screws. So we got to remove all of these screws here. So let's start with this. We'll start with this screw, and we'll remove this screw right here. And I'm going to put that inside there, so we know that all the screws for the power supply are in one bin, separate from all the others. So far the steel screw is going to be the only difference. Still the same size, black screws. Keep them together, keep all the screws for each part separate. These three are so far the same size. So now we have our power supply here, and we'll just pull it right out. And that's Apple's power supply, as opposed to Car Systems power supply. Okay, made to do DC instead of AC. Okay, this is DC, this is AC. So let's put that to the side, right? And we're going to place that right in here, and we're going to put all of our screws back in. Now, before I do anything else, I want to show you the voltage. So before we put this in, let me put this back. And I'm going to place this back in again, like that. And we're going to put our silver screw back and one of our black screws back in. They're all the same size. We'll just leave that hanging like that. So now I'm going to put this back right on here. And I'm going to place these two screws back in again. So I plugged the Apple TV back in again. And this light is blinking now. That means that it's on boot up. So we're going to put our meter to 20 DC. And I'm going to show you the voltage that we got. Okay? So here's the voltage. Ready? We put the red on here, and 12 volts, see? 12.11 volts right now, okay? So let's go back to our project. So I'm gonna unplug it here, and let's continue with our power supply. Okay, our old power supply is out. Put that to the side, and let's put our wonderful new power supply in, okay? That has a DC connection. So we can put that in, and we can replace all of these screws. Remember, the silver screw goes into this one right here. Right there. And these are all the same size, black screws. Okay, the power supply back in. We are now going to use our barrel connector. And we're going to feed it through here. Turn it around. You line up the two screw holes like that. Now we can bend that and connect that right in there. And there it is. So now we can our heatsink back into the Apple TV, and you're going to see that it lines up, and when you pop it in, the hole lines up. See? The barrel connector. So then you can barrel connect. Okay? Okay, so all we have to do is now put everything back together again. So all you have to do is place the heatsink inside the case itself. Just make sure that the power lines up. And you put these 4 screws here. They're all the same size, one in each corner. Then you have to place this back on. Now I want to show this to you in detail because it's kind of hard to understand what it's for. So there's a piece of rubber on the back of it, all right? I'll try to focus in. There's a piece of rubber on the back of it. Now this has a little tiny point that you want to place inside the hole that's in front of the case. So this hole is right in front, right over here. And you want to have this part, I'll show you. You want this part that has a flat end right over here facing down this way, okay? Because that has a little groove in it, and that's how you put it in. Then you simply just place that rubber piece back and it goes right in place and you're good. Now I think this has to do with the IR or something like that. I have no idea what it's for, but it did have to get removed in order to remove the heatsink. Then basically all you do is you pop in this, you screw that down with the 2 screws that are from here, and then you put your EMI shield back on, and you use these 5 long screws, all the same size, to put it away. Then you throw the cover back on, and now you can plug in whatever accessory, and we're going to do that, and I'll show you that the Apple TV powers and it also has no problem. Okay? Okay, so we got it all back together, and I told you initially I was going to use this 5 amp 12 volt plug for my home, but when I tried it, I pushed it in, it didn't go as quite as planned. We really don't need this much. We only need the 1 amp, so I think I'm going to decide to use this one instead. This one is 12 volt and it's 1 amp. Okay, 1 amp max, and believe it or not, it works great. So I'm going to push that right in there, and we're good for the home. Okay, you don't have to have that big brick. And like I said, for the car, I'm going to use this here, this little system here. Now, if I want, I just plug right in here. Boom, done. The great thing is they also gave you one in case you needed this tip and you had a 12 volt already. Alright, as far as that other project goes, where I'm going to power the Apple TV and also power this here, what I'm going to do is connect it, see? And I have, this is a 5 amp 12 volt coming in, okay? And I can test that by putting this probe in here and the other probe here on alongside it, and you're going to see 12.14 amps or something like that. Okay, then we can plug it into here, and I could show you what the function of this is. So this is the splitter I'm putting it into, and you can see on this side it's 12 amps here, right? 12 amps here. And then if I poke this probe into this side here, it's going to be also 12 amps. Okay, but now we use the step down. Now you can turn the power to the USB off while it's still going, the voltmeter is still on, or you can turn it back on again, so it supplies on and off for the 5 amp. Then you have this where you can pretty much click this to turn everything off. So let's keep the voltmeter on, and let's keep this light indicator indicates there's power coming through here. Now let's put our tester on here, and you're going to see that it is 5 amps right here. See it? 5 amps. So in my theory was correct. I can split this as long as you have more than 3 amp, because you can't use it with a 1 amp like I have for just the Apple TV alone. But if I'm splitting it up and I need more power, I'm going to need more amperage, obviously. Let's actually plug in the Apple TV, and we're going to see it's powering up. Alright, right alongside the 12 amp on here. Okay, about to plug in my 1 amp max 12 volt, and I have it plugged into the barrel connection that we just installed in the power supply. So I plug it in, and you're going to see the Apple TV power up. It does its little blinking thing. We hooked it up HDMI to the TV above here, and you're going to see it turn on in a minute. Don't worry, it's coming. And there it is. Apple TV in all its goodness. See? The IR still works. See? And we can watch all different shows, do whatever we want. Okay? So if you want to put one in the car, you only need the 1 amp. Try to even use something like 1.5 amp. And if you want to split it and power the converter that converts HDMI to RCA, then go for something like 3 or 5 amps, 12 volt. Okay? Any questions? Leave them in the comments. I appreciate you watching this video. I know it was a long one, but I wanted to make it a detailed video so there is no question that this is the way to go if you want Apple TV in a mobile vehicle. Have a nice day, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.